a fairly late mark Centurion, so it's got the 105mm gun. A couple of things you might like to note is we're always getting asked. One is that nagging around the gun barrel, which is known as the thermal sleeve. That's there to maintain the temperature of the gun barrel, believe it or not. Although you and I can't bend them, the heat and the cold will. The other thing is that black cylinder about halfway down the barrel, which is a bit larger diameter than the barrel itself. That's actually there to extract the fumes from the firing of the gun, which would otherwise trickle back into the turret. The fumes are taken into that container and then sucked out by the next shell. The Centurion's powered by a Rolls-Royce Meteor V12 engine, which is an improved version of the type used in the Cromwell and Comet tanks of the Second World War, and is in fact a modification of the Rolls-Royce Merlin aero engine as used in aircraft like the Spitfire, Hurricane, Mosquito and the Lancaster, of course. So it's got a long and very effective history. The other thing to note about British tanks at this time is that all the drive from engine through gearbox to the tracks is all in the back. In many tanks, especially that kind of green we saw earlier, the engine at the back and the gearbox at the front, and that means it's easier for the driver to change gear. But not quite cutting the cushion into space in the tank. Other improvements to Centurion over the years with the commander's vision hatch on top of the tank, what we call the cupola, that was improved to make his ability to fight without sticking his head out a lot easier. It also had the range of its fuel increase by putting on larger tanks. Following in its wake is an original Scorpion. Now, we saw Scimitar earlier on, but Scimitar survived in British Army service and undergone a lot of modifications. And the Scorpion didn't, and the main reason for this is that the gun, which is a 76mm gun, very similar but improved compared with the one in Sabadin, that gun actually delivered enough fumes into the turret to make it not only unpleasant but slightly unhealthy and illegal. So Scorpion in that sense went out of service, and we're not allowed to fire the gun on that one even if we could originally. Leopard has been an amazing success. In its day, the old Centurion, which we showed you earlier on, was a worldwide sales success. Not only the Commonwealth and Dominion countries who you'd expect to buy British brought Centurion, but it sold all around the world, especially in Europe. It was used in the Middle East, it was used in Vietnam with the Australians, and we used the Cent in Korea and in Suez. What is interesting is that since the demise of Centurion, and it is a pretty long in the tooth-old tank now, its place has been taken in so many armies by Leopard. And I think this is because Leopard is far more of a direct successor to Centurion than the sort of main battle tanks we've been building, which are really aimed at the sort of fighting you'd expect to see in a Third World War. They're generally quite large, and that's because they use mainly armoured castings, both the hull and the turret. The M60 is armed with a 105mm gun, it has a flat turret, rangefinder, and a large white light night fighting searchlight on top of the turret. Normally carry a crew of 4 men, and the real difference between it and the British tank like Centurion or its contemporary Chieftain is the fact that it's fully automatic. So the air-cooled diesel in the back, a fully automatic transmission, so again, a child could drive it. They're ever so simple, but the argument against automatic, at least in Britain, was that it tended to use up more fuel than necessary. You didn't get that sort of economy a trained driver could do. A Scorpion 76mm turret on it. This is a Canadian-built vehicle known as a Cougar, 6-wheel drive, quite large bodied armoured car. But although it's not in service anymore in this form, for exactly the same reason as Scorpion isn't, there are other versions of Cougar, repair and recovery vehicles and that.
Trojan. This came into service in 2008 after intensive trials and development up here in Bovington. 33 vehicles have now been supplied to the Royal Engineers, and its main aim is to support the fighting troops by clearing mines, filling in anti-tank ditches with the use of fascines, which are the black sort of tubes you can see stacked on the back, as well as digging and removing obstacles. They're very effective asset to have on the battlefield. In terms of the crew, you have the one driver, and it can also fit another 3 in the back, and often the commander at the front. The armour, you have a modular armour pack. Okay, and depending on the nature of threat, you can also add additional armour plates. The engine is an IVECO 3-litre F1 Charlie turbocharged diesel, producing 182 brake horsepower, coupled with an automatic gearbox with 6 forward and 1 reverse gear. With D Squadron Household Cavalry Regiment, the Gulf War I, Bosnia, Kosovo, Gulf War II, and recently on Op Herrick in Afghanistan with great success. In terms of its specifications, it weighs in at approximately 7.8 tonnes. However, this is greater when extra bar armour and extra fittings are fitted. At a length of approximately 4.9 metres. In terms of armament, it's armed with 1x 30mm Radin cannon, which you can now see. A 1x L37 7.62mm coaxial machine gun mounted inside the turret. And ammunition-wise, the next vehicle entering the arena is a Bulldog. What you will notice, it's basically a 432 with a few updates put on. You've got the remote weapon system on top, as well as on operations, additional armour to the side, as well as bar armour. The Bulldog is basically an updated version of the FV432 and first entered service in 1962. It was developed for service in Iraq, with the first batch of 500 being handed over to the Army in December 2006. Eventually, 1,000 will be delivered. The BvS10 entered service with the Royal Marines in July 2003 after intensive all-terrain, all-weather trials up here in Bovington. 108 units were initially ordered by the MOD from the makers BAE Systems, but there have been more brought into service since. The Viking entered service with the British Army in April 2006 and was initially deployed on operations in Afghanistan with the Royal Marines in October 2088, replacing the ever-trustworthy FV432 APC, which you will have seen earlier, of vehicles, and is used as an infantry fighting vehicle. There are other variants used by the Royal Artillery for the Forward Observation Officer, and Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers for their recovery variant. 789 vehicles were procured for the British Army use, and 254 Desert Warriors were exported to Kuwait. Warrior primarily equips armoured infantry units and has been used on operations in Bosnia, Kosovo, Iraq and Afghanistan, where its high level of mobility, lethality, survivability is proven authentically.
3 tanks coming into the arena at the moment to effectively round off this part of the display are actually quite useful to us because they will tell us a story. Leading the way is Chieftain, which you've seen before, powered by that big strange Leyland L60 vertically opposed engine. Arranged in such a way that in order to keep the profile down, the driver is effectively reclining in his driving seat, taking gear with his foot, as you will on a motorcycle, but it's the engine coming out. Well, there was a throw that we're not interested in. So, exercises came up with something known as the Trojan armour, now known as Dorchester, which is a form of laminate, not how exactly what it's made of. I don't know if we need to shoot you all, it's a state secret, but what it means is you've got a tank there which was going to be shielded arm 2, but was then taken over by the British Army to keep our ordnance and business, taken over as the Challenger, now known as Challenger 1 main battle tank. And this particular tank, which is a exhibit of ours, was